How we doing, traders? Welcome to the SPACs attack. You guys definitely know where you guys are at. We're going to talk a lot about LiDAR today. So get ready. We got another stock for you guys in the LiDAR industry. So let me know if you guys are excited. Give me a big thumbs up and let's go ahead and get the SPACs attack started. What up, my traders? How we doing? Yes, I was just trading live, changed the shirt, ready for another interview. So let's bring on my man, the brains, to this show. You guys might know him as Chris Ccac on our articles, but guess what? I know him as Chrisopedia.
Hey, what's going on, Mitch? Hoping that you had a great weekend. I'd love to say that mine was, amazing, but of course we did see the Netherlands bow out of the Euro 2020 tournament, unfortunately. But otherwise, great weekend.
Yeah, definitely. You know, when the dogs go barking, the dogs go barking. It looks like the dogs are barking in the back. They weren't too happy with the Netherlands losing either. I wasn't too happy because I lost a nice parlay. But hey, that's how it goes. And you just keep going. You find the next trade, just like I find the next sports bets. So who knows? We'll just keep going and moving. But Chris, looks like we have some movement out there in the SPAC industry. So we definitely want to go ahead and get towards our watch list in our interview today. So we'll see kind of how we're moving on the day, but definitely not a bad day today. We got a couple of them leading. CCIV is one of our leaders. We've been talking about this one. We'll definitely get into that.
Yeah, we'll get to that on the watch list. But yeah, CCIV we've been talking about over the past week. So hopefully everyone was able to maybe catch a position in that one like you did, Mitch, because where we're seeing the trends starting to come back, and with that merger vote date set, I think CCIV gets started here.
And guess what, Chris? I want your body.
Yeah, we've got to talk body when we get to the watch list too. So,
all right, definitely. We'll go ahead and get into that. Let's go ahead and keep this going and get into the headlines.
All right, guys. Yeah, for a Monday morning, there actually is not a ton of news out there for SPACs. But as Mitch said, we do have lots of movement. So we want to spend some time on that watch list. So I'll try to power through, the headlines today. So up first, as Mitch said, Beachbody completing its name and ticker change today. New ticker, BODY. Shares are trading. Company also rang the opening bell. So they're going to get some attention today. Shares were up significantly this morning. Still up on the day, but we'll take a look at that chart after headlines. We want to say that there's a new SPAC. It will be ticker TDMY, filed by our friend Niccolo De Masi. This is the same team that did Rush Street Interactive, Genius Sports, and IonQ deals. Keep an eye on DMYQ. That is the other SPAC from De Masi and team. With the new filing, there's a chance that we get a deal announcement, from DMYQ in the near term. So definitely on watch today. Then NGCA, if you missed the show on Friday, NGCA was one of my favorite picks for a possible move higher. The company has a merger rumor with Virgin Orbit, which was, one of the most sought after companies for a while. But shares still under 1050. Virgin Orbit actually has news out this week. They have a satellite launch coming on the 30th. That's this Wednesday. So I think we could actually see shares of NGCA move higher on Wednesday, since they're the company connected to Virgin Orbit until that rumor, gets shut down, with Virgin Orbit saying, they're going to IPO or something different. But until then, NGCA is the company that is in exclusive talks with Virgin Orbit. So I think shares actually move higher this week. It's on my watch list. Tattooed Chef, another one that's been on my watch for a while. I'm starting to see rumors out there, people finding their products on Kroger's website. So Tattooed Chef already in Target stores, Costco stores, a handful of others, and selling direct to consumer. It also looks like maybe they will be added to Kroger stores. That's one of the largest grocery retailers in the nation. So that would be a big get for Tattooed Chef. Definitely a story to keep watching. And we did get some dates set. We have LCY voting on July 30th or 13th with Hillman Group, GXGX voting on the 14th with Cellularity, and TWND voting on the 20th of July with Complex. July calendar filling in nicely here. We'll dive in since tomorrow is nearing the start of July. We'll dive into that July calendar, I think, tomorrow or later this week. Really want to highlight, as we did with June, the large calendar of merger vote dates, and maybe point out some that Mitch and I are watching, from a story and from a technical point of view on which ones maybe are the ones to look at before those vote dates. Our big mover on Friday, former SPAC, Virgin Galactic, SPCE, shares were up 39% to end the day. They also were trading higher in after hours on Friday. Shares are down 5% today, pulling back a little bit. This was the move I called out on Friday, said that we would get a pullback most likely coming on Monday or Tuesday. And then the big story to watch now will be if Virgin Galactic decides to try to beat Jeff Bezos to space. We could see another leg up. But if that July 20th date passes with Blue Origin going to space, we could also see some more downward pressure on Virgin Galactic shares. And then we do have a deal out. This one was announced around 9 o'clock today. I don't have a ton of color on it yet, but this is the Oncology Institute. This is an oncology care company going public. That ticker is DFPH, DFP Healthcare, trading right around $10 today. Deal values the company at $842 million. They're the U.S. market leader in value-based oncology care. This is highly scalable and an operating model that they say can disrupt the $200 billion oncology market. So they have over 50 community-based practice locations in states like California, Nevada, Arizona, and Florida. They serve 1.3 million lives under contracts. They treat over 46,000 patients each year. This is a large company. They have a pipeline of growth, additional states, acquisition pipeline to really grow the business. So revenue they see growing 18% to $221 million in 2021, and then up 56% to $345 million in fiscal 2022. Again, I don't have a ton of details on this. I would imagine that 18% revenue growth is due, in fact, of coming out of the pandemic, and that 56% in 2022 may take them closer to, prior numbers. Already seen a comment from Avery in the chat on SoFi. Didn't have a chance to get into this one a ton on Friday. So SoFi is the subject to several share lockups starting today, June 28th, after meeting several items from that investor filing. So we could see some big sales from some insider holders. I will note that the PIPE shareholders actually did not have a lockup. So they were free to trade shares immediately when this traded or changed over to SoFi. So that's something to keep in mind. But we are seeing shares of SoFi face some pressure here. We're down under 18 today. This is one I'm actually looking at possibly getting into once we see, all this selling pressure go away. So that would be my notes on SoFi. That's what I've got, Mitch. Let's dive into that watch list. Body, of course, the big move today. We're up 5%. We were up double-digit percent earlier today. This is an exciting one. And we were trading at, when we looked at this June calendar, Mitch, we were trading at around $10, right? When we highlighted the merger dates to watch. And this was one that we said from the start, this is a well-known brand. It's going to also trade as Body, BODY, which is a great ticker. This is one that should be on watch. And yeah, I'm pulling up the list right now. This was $10.03 when we talked about it with the June calendar. And look at that move since then. I mean, if you were able to get into this, you saw some nice chances to take a 10% profit, a 20% profit. Even this morning, over 30% profit. So what do you think of Body today, now that it is starting to see some downward pressure here?
A little bit upset because, of course, I sold out a little bit early. But, hey, that's how it goes. I sold out a little bit early, took some profits in this one. When it came back down to $9.95, they're giving me another chance to get in it, and I missed out. And then so now you're seeing this stock back up there towards that 1265. We'll see if it can kind of continue making its move on up. You're seeing that interest definitely be in that stock. One thing that I would definitely look for, guys, is for in the next couple of days to see some kind of mention really get picked up on, let's say, Reddit streams or threads. Look for that kind of pickup in that environment. That's what you want to see, some kind of hype really get picked up on this name. And then you could see it continue moving. I don't think this is it. I do think this is a smart pullback here to get some kind of volume into the stock. Now you're seeing 2.6 million shares traded. So let's see how this actually reacts in the next couple of days. See if some people are trying to load up the boat, starting to average somewhere in here, and then kind of get that big lift up. We'll see if that kind of comes. Next stock that I'm looking at, of course, we talked a little bit about it. CCIV starting to make its move up about 7% on the day. I'm going to keep watching this one, see if it can continue making its move on up. I would love to see this one get to 30. 30 would be that number where it really started to get that lift look and really would start looking bullish to get to the gap. The gap is at 35. And so once we get up there through the 30s, we'll be looking strong. Hold on any pullbacks towards 27, but we're going to look for that move to continue going through the 30s. I'm in this one at 25, 22s, and we'll see if we can continue to see this one making its move on up. Nikola on its way up, also fighting to get to the 20s. You see multiple highs here above 1860s, 19. I want to see 19s hold today, and then it could go up there and start testing 20. So let's see how this one starts moving. CMLF, an interesting play here as it's made multiple times to get above this kind of 1325 area. What are you thinking about this play, Chris? Do you think there's some interest in here?
Yeah, I definitely think there's some interest. This is one. This is SEMA 4. This is, I think ARC is in this one. It's seen some nice movement. If you look at that chart, I mean, this one skyrocketed when they announced the deal. But that, of course, was back in February, when we kind of saw the peak of SPACs. So now we're starting to see kind of that makeup trade, though. And this is another one where they haven't announced the merger vote date. So, you've got another catalyst with that coming. Definitely one to watch. Mitch, the thing I'll say about the watch list here is a couple of those names at the top of today's, trades. We have Skills, Nikola, Fisker, Desktop Metal, Lordstown Motors, QuantumScape, MP Materials. Those were all stocks that were added to the Russell 3000 on Friday. We talked about this, weeks ago, that there were going to be a lot of de-SPACed companies getting added to the Russell. And if you played, some of that trade idea, you're seeing that makeup now where these former SPACs are getting added to the Russell. And now these ETFs have to add shares of these former SPACs. I mean, 1 in 5 of the additions to the Russell 3000 was a former SPAC. But look at that. I mean, Skills, all those movers on that watch list. I mean, half of that top list, I think, got added to the Russell 3000. So, a nice move again today.
Yeah, last one I'm going to mention so that we can get into our interview coming up, guys. We will be having an interview with the CEO of the company merging with CCAV, Kevin Kennedy, coming up, guys. So stay tuned for that. Last company I want to mention is QuantumScape. Reason why is what you just kind of mentioned, right? And so I'm looking to see if this one can kind of continue making its move. It is pulling back a little bit today, was up a little bit higher in the pre-market hour. So we'll see if this one can kind of continue making its move. But look how there's even right now, as of recently, there's been kind of these call sweeps coming in to QS. I'll give you guys a little bit of insight. I do see a little bit of a wave coming into EV. What if we get another wave into battery makers? So look how that's looking strong this morning, up there at about 2.3%. And this is when I start looking at this one and I'm like, the FOMO starts coming in, because I wanted this one this morning. I didn't get this one, but I'm paying attention to this one. I think this one has a great chart that it can come back to. If we look here at the daily chart, this one could really start getting roaring. It's had multiple looks to break down, has this kind of 25 level that it held sideways and 26 for quite a while now. Let's see if we can get a real lift on this one through the 30s. In the end of the week, I'll be looking to see if this one can get back up there towards kind of this 40 look. We'll keep an eye out. QuantumScape on the move, up there now, about 3% now. We'll keep an eye on this one.
All right. Well, that is going to take us to our interview today. Mitch, did we have a video?
Yeah, let's go ahead and let's play that video. Let's do that
video before we bring Kevin on here, just so everyone can see a little bit about Quanergy here.
Yep. Let me go ahead and reset this up. Just got to make sure we get the sound on correctly here. All right. Share audio. I think we're good here now. Boom. There we go.
At its core, LiDAR is a mapping technology, and while it has made its name as an important component for autonomous vehicles, these detailed maps are crucial for many other industries as well.
LiDAR mapping is improving the way we understand, visualize, and interact with our world, and nobody does it better than Quanergy. Quanergy's M8 LiDAR sensor is unparalleled in capturing high accuracy, high resolution, and extremely dense 3D point clouds for land surveying, urban transportation planning, asset inspection and monitoring, archaeological excavation, and more. The M8 has been proven worldwide and deployed in aerial and UAV platforms, vehicles, and portable mapping. The M8 stands above its competition in accuracy, with high measurement accuracy of 3 centimeters for a precise representation of the surroundings. Angular resolution, with a high point cloud resolution of 0.033 degrees to 0.132 degrees to capture small details and objects in the environment, such as power line transmission wires. Point density, the M8 creates an incredibly dense 3D point cloud in real time, with up to 1.3 million points per second with 3 returns. And in range, with a long range of up to 200 meters at 80% reflectivity.
All right, there you guys have it, a little bit of what we're about to get into. So Chris, let's go ahead and introduce here.
All right, guys. Yeah, you saw it in that video. We're going to be talking LiDAR today. Joining us on Ccac, we have Kevin Kennedy. He is the CEO and chairman of Quanergy. That company is merging with Ccac Capital Acquisition Corp, ticker CCAC. Welcome to Ccac, Kevin.
Thanks, Chris and Mitch. Great to be here with you.
Welcome to the show. I'm going to go ahead and let Chris lead with some questions, and I'll be back with some of my own.
Great.
Awesome. So, Kevin, before we dive into Quanergy here, wondering if you can give our viewers a brief background of your experience in the industry here.
Yeah, sure, Chris. Been blessed to work any place from Bell Labs to Cisco Systems in great growth years, and more recently JDSU, and today at Quanergy. So always in tech is really the point.
Perfect. And then, we have Quanergy going public via SPAC here. The first question we like to start with here on Ccac, is why a SPAC merger to bring Quanergy public? And, was a traditional IPO also a consideration for your company?
Well, Chris, I think at one point in time, and all boards look at multiple paths, but I think the reality is, number one, the market is poised to start growing as we're coming out of the pandemic and looking to timelines for both the Internet of Things and the transportation market. Second is there are many, many venture-backed companies, and this is a moment where access to capital is crucial. And then third is, here you have a SPAC that found interest in this particular company, and the board had a decision to make. Is this the right time and the right place? And we made that decision. So we're thrilled. Access to capital is a key ingredient to success, and we're going to put our heads down and continue to execute.
And then even prior to the SPAC merger, Quanergy has attracted some big names as investors in the company. We have Aptiv, Daimler, Enterprise, Samsung, and others. What does this do in terms of validation of Quanergy and your products to, secure some of the big names on this slide here that we're showing?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so, let me start with one of the reasons that I was attracted to trying to help the company was that, number one, very big markets in the future. And of course, the automotive market will be probably one of the biggest. Second is that we have a very unique technology called an optical phased array. And the thing that many people are not aware of is that phased array technology, which is basically all the sciences embedded in semiconductors and very large scale semiconductors like CMOS, is that ships roughly 20 million radar phased array devices per year in automotive today. So the notion that the phased array architecture was an extraordinary fit for high scale was very clear. And then third is, this is an industry and a company that needed to scale. And obviously from my background, I have a lot of experience in helping companies scale and technology. So I believe that the early investors that you just showed on the screen saw all of those same attributes. They were familiar with the phased array architecture. We're doing in nanometers what phased array architecture and radar does in millimeters. And so, logical that we would be there, and therefore they want to invest in our success. And you're right that this moment of attracting the capital from Ccac Capital is sort of a validation of that insight of our early investors.
Awesome. So, you gave us some great background there on the company, in the LiDAR space. I want to get a little bit into, some customers and some partnerships. So Quanergy has over 350 customers, 40 partnerships, and also 80 active pilot programs. Can you give our viewers, just, a sense of what type and what companies you're working with and how some of those pilot programs, will progress through the years?
Yeah, sure. So, the company's first products were really focused on the mapping industry. And however, more recently, as we came out with some new products, better range, better dimensionality, we've seen most of our activity in the smart cities, smart spaces. And so examples of that would be, for example, if you are in Miami Airport, Denver Airport, Singapore, Heathrow, we have our LiDAR technology basically watching as you come in the airport terminal, how you get to the TSA gate, what the queue size is at the TSA, and so forth. So smart cities basically being able to help automate large public infrastructure. And so we have partners such as CETA that we have worked with on that front, CrowdVision and others. And so the bottom line is we add a level of intelligence by being able to detect, classify that it's a human being, and be able to track. And then therefore we can measure the queues and help people realign manpower at public infrastructure. So that's a couple of examples.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, we've seen so many companies, mentioned as LiDAR market plays. And here in your presentation, we have that the Internet of Things LiDAR market is expected to reach $16.7 billion by the year 2030. And as you mentioned, smart cities, mapping, security, some of those different areas. Can you just walk us through kind of the game plan for Quanergy to really hit on the Internet of Things LiDAR market here?
Yeah, so great. All of these markets are in transition. And as I said, today, roughly 2/3 of our pipeline are on new applications around new products. But mapping has been a traditional stronghold for LiDAR in general, and certainly Quanergy. However, what's new there is drone-based LiDAR. So having great distance so that you can get above wires, great resolution so that you have fewer passes across a vineyard or a construction site. So the drone, and therefore great packaging, so it's It's light, it's cost effective, but you get a lot of technology bang for the buck. In the security space, it's securing critical infrastructure like data centers, which are, if you fly into Reston, Virginia, the data center world is exploding. It's like the factories of the 1950s, if you will. I think 80% of the traffic of the world goes through Ashburn, Virginia. Smart cities or other critical infrastructure like pipelines in the Middle East, retail, airports. People have needs to secure things, often used in combination with camera technology, by the way. But probably the biggest and most important one for us is the industrial space. All of those infrastructure deals are deals where you work with some portion of a region, you deploy it, and then you wait, and then you get the next one. Industrial is where you have robots, AGVs, or other end units that are being pulled by the markets of today. And so it's like a design slot. It's a great precursor to the volumes of the transportation market that occur later in this decade. So for us, we want to do a great job on the first three sectors that we talked about, but port automation and the industrial is where you get design slots, design wins, much higher volume. And the thing that's going on there is a transition from 2D to 3D. So many of the earlier LiDAR, scanning LiDARs, as well as camera technologies are becoming insufficient. And we can deliver three-dimensionality of shape, direction, velocity, all at 2D prices. And so right now I see a significant vigor as we begin going after the industrial market. Again, the mega trend is 3D technology and capability at 2D pricing.
Perfect. And then I want to talk a little bit about the automotive LiDAR market, but I know Mitch has some questions on that later on. But we have a total addressable market of $10.6 billion for by the year 2030 for automotive LiDAR. Why is it important here that Quanergy is, kind of going after Internet of Things first before automotive here?
Yeah, well, first, one of the challenges has been that the automotive market has not developed at the pace that people thought, say, in 2015, 16, and 17. And so it will be a very, very large market. It is the most demanding in terms of the technology. And I would say that, to your point earlier, where you mentioned the advisors that we have from the auto market that are observers on our board, the feedback that we have gotten is that the automotive market for LiDAR will develop, well, said another way, the level 2 and level 2 plus technologies that are in place today will survive and be more prevalent for a little bit longer than people thought. So therefore, in order to de-risk us and make sure that we could scale well, the Internet of Things market became crucial for us to do a great job at. And that's a market that is incubating today. The industrial market, by the way, today is over $1 billion. The problem is it's largely 2D technology waiting to be disrupted by 3D. And so that's why we are going after the IoT. It's a bridge to the automotive. It's ready, it's big today, and we have great technology that can help customers.
Perfect. And then, obviously becoming a publicly traded company, we've got to talk a little bit about the financials. So we have revenue projections, 90 million in 2023, and then it really starts to ramp up. 255 million in 2024, 549 million in 2025, compounded annual growth of 201% from 21 to 25. Walk us through a little bit. What happens in 2023 to 2024 there to really ramp up the revenue numbers?
Yeah. So obviously the growth rate is benefits from starting with a small denominator initially. Over the last year, we just brought 10 new products to market. This year, we'll do something equivalent to that. So our velocity has kicked in, and our line of sight to getting automotive or solid state category products is in place, is palpable right now. And so what you see here is that in the first 3 years, three to 4 years, we're largely IoT based, and the biggest growth is really going to come from the industrial or the security and smart spaces side. As we hit that 2024 and 2025, you begin to see us entering the transportation market on the back of some successful wins with the solid state. And so, to your point earlier, we are largely a mechanical and software IoT play for the first 3 to 4 years, followed by a phasing in of solid state technology for transportation.
Perfect. And then, there was a mention of M&A listed on the presentation for future growth. I'm wondering if you can just give us a sense of, what Quanergy will be looking for. Will it be acquisitions within the IoT market? Will it be, some other areas? And could we possibly see some consolidation from all these LiDAR companies that are going public?
So number one, I definitely believe that you'll see consolidation from LiDAR companies that are going public. There's about only 20 companies that actually have revenues, and so with over 100 LiDAR companies that were started in the venture side, you will see consolidation. For us, we're going to be very much focused on, let me step back. In order to scale to meet those demands that you showed implied by revenues, companies will find it necessary to do some M&A just to scale for skills and talent. There's another side of this that as you get more and more successful, you have to have more cross-functional skills, and getting that complexity, it's easier to sometimes acquire those skills than to hire those skills. Then the third is there'll be software technologies, and you're exactly right. We will be looking for acquisitions that can allow us to scale and become more complete solution providers within specific verticals. So I don't anticipate that being so much from a sensor perspective, but from a software skills and delivery perspective, I think you'll see some M&A interest on our side.
Perfect. And then one last question from me before I turn things over to Mitch here with some more questions. We're seeing an administration, that's supportive of electric vehicles. We also just got, a large infrastructure package passed. How much of that, optimism from the administration is priced into projections here? Or could there be some upside for Quanergy, with the new infrastructure bill and electric vehicle spending?
Great question, and I don't know the answer to how much is priced in. I think certainly our projections, and from a board perspective, we did not think about the favorability that you're implying that came out in the recent bills. So I think that's a positive. It gives energy to our team and our board, but I'm not capable of telling you what's priced into the pricing.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and jump in here now. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about is, let's go ahead and bring up this slide. For myself too, that's not a LiDAR expert here. Can you explain to us what really OPA LiDAR really is and how you guys have an advantage here compared to, let's say, MEMS and flash technology?
Yeah, sure, Mitch. And let me try to, be useful to you and your viewers on this. So I'll start with the optical phased array. Simply think about it as antennas that are embedded into a semiconductor substrate, so the way it's etched, and you create interference patterns, like throwing a rock into a pond. There's these circles that emanate, and by computer controlling those interference patterns, you can create a beam, you can steer a beam, and then you can enable it to be detected. The great news is it's a heavy investment up front to design that so simply in solid state. And that on this picture that you have here, that little board in the middle, you can see it's about the size of the fingers on an Applejack, represents that beam steering capability. So the great news is you get two things. You get semiconductor economics, which is the absolute lowest variable cost as you scale up, but you get computer control. So you get features. So if you go back to the other slide that was sort of the matrix, you get things like adaptive zoom, where you can focus all of the light on the object. You can move it around in any pattern. Those are things that are somewhat unique to the optical phased array. And that's why, as I mentioned, phased array architecture is so attractive and ships today in 20 million cars under the rubric of radar. So it's why it's a great fit. Now, to compare that to other technologies, I'll go to the bottom. There is a technology called flash, which has been around for quite some time, very useful in scanning applications. And that's just like a flash bulb where you have many light sources, so you're not steering the beams, and you saturate an object with that light. It tends not to be so energy efficient because there's so much light. You tend to have range limitations because it's hard to filter out the light that you don't need, if you will. And so that's why you see the cost is a little bit less favorable, reliability's a little bit less favorable, and things like the computer control that you get from the steering just isn't there. MEMS is really, there's been two generations of mirrors. There's a Galvy mirror, which tends to be a larger mirror, and then there's micro electronic mirrors, so that more, much smaller, and but it's another piece of an architecture that has to steer the beam. So it's another part, if you will, that has to be packaged. And so because of that, you tend to have a little bit higher cost, less reliability. Sometimes the mirrors get stuck. They're not as performant. And you have less flexibility in the dimensionality of where you steer the beam. And so the bottom line is for maximum, the hardest of these three to make was the OPA. We just had a breakthrough for range this year. But the other two were faster to market, but you suffer on either cost, reliability, or performance. Is that helpful?
Honestly, I'm going to replay that for myself because I've been trying to really understand the industry, and I think you did a great job there, Kevin, of doing a quick explanation there, but definitely pointing out what are the differences between the technologies and the technology that you guys have. And it's like it says at the bottom here, it says Quanergy is the only major LiDAR producer to successfully harness the potential of OPA, and why do you think that you guys were able to be successful here while others weren't?
Yeah, great. It was really a philosophy. You know, if you wanted to get the first product to put on a car and trial, OPA wasn't going to be the path. If you wanted to pick an architecture that you knew ultimately would have the best economics in the industry, the OPA was the path. So it was a bet. If the industry had actually kicked off and triggered in 2018, we would have been challenged. Given the current timeline, we're lining up the best ever for the advance and the scaling of this industry.
Excellent. So let's go ahead and let's get into some comparables here. So we're starting to look here at kind of revenue dependency, really. And it's said here that it's compared and represents 18% of the revenues in 2025 compared to about the range here that you see 78 to 80%. Most LiDAR companies. How are you guys able to accomplish this kind of dependency and it actually not really being dependent on exactly the automotive industry?
Yeah, Mitch. So, great question. And this goes back to the earlier conversation about many companies were focused simply and strictly on the automotive industry. The automotive industry has taken longer. We had the benefit of having a portfolio that also focused on this IoT. And as I mentioned earlier, the IoT market is starting today. The industrial side of that is the largest single LiDAR consumer today, in hundreds of millions to $1 billion. And so what that slide represents is we're focusing on the IoT market as a bridge to automotive. And so another way of looking at that observation is if automotive LiDAR consumption were to take longer than people think, we are a lower risk than other choices in that chart.
Definitely something that we're going to keep an eye out to watch how these other companies either show their dependency in only automotive or also kind of expand into it. But definitely something that I like to point out. The next thing I want to point out is when we get into the revenue multiples here, this is where it really kind of stands out to me compared to, let's say, LiDAR providers. We're talking the lowest kind of multiple that I'm seeing here on this. So how are you guys able to accomplish this low revenue multiple? And really, I mean, this is something that I think we're going to keep watching in the long term, as this looks like it's going to be a nice value play here.
Yeah, I think you're right. So, if you go back to just the buildup, that the prior chart really communicated three things, which was one is, our revenue dependency has a different risk profile given the IoT being used as a bridge to automotive. Statement one. Statement two is we plan on burning less cash in order to get to cash flow break even, significantly less cash. And the reason is much of the heavy investment on the OPA has already been accomplished. And so a lower risk. And then the third is valuation. And that's where this slide comes in. The fact of the matter is Ccac has, negotiated a deal that is a lower risk and at an attractive entry price, if you will, said another way, discounted relative to the peers. And so that's what they felt was the right positioning for the market. That's the opportunity that's being presented. And that's the decision that our board had to align with or not. And that's what we've done. Of course, the LiDAR space, as a backdrop to this, 1 year ago, there was one public company and the public valuation was under $500 million. Today, there are 6 or 7 standalone LiDAR companies and the public valuations exceed $18 billion. So it's a market that has attracted, people into the market for public investment. Most of the SPACs are trading at par or better. And, Ccac, the proposition that they're bringing to people is a lower risk, hopefully in terms of the financials, but a discount, as you're pointing out.
Yep, definitely. That's why I'm pointing out this bottom line too here, guys. As it states here, trading at 57% to 72% discount to the peer groups and the current averages. So definitely something that keeps it on watch for me, especially when we're trying to find which one is really going to kind of take off and take the lead here. I think this is really something that you kind of pay attention to with that discount being there for our investors out there on the SPACs attack. Let's go ahead and bring Chris back in here. How we doing, Chris? You got some question from the chat for us?
Doing good. Yeah, Kevin, we've got a couple questions in the chat here for you. And I got to tell you, Kevin, I really enjoyed the answer from you on breaking down the LiDAR market. Mitch, that was great to ask. And, Kevin, we hear of so many LiDAR companies, going public. And, there's that big, what is LiDAR and what is LiDAR all about? So big thank you. And as Mitch said, I'm going to go back and, watch that explanation too, because I really think it helped to break down the LiDAR market here. So a couple questions from the chat here. We have Born to Be Free asking, are you building your own IoT devices? Is the security built in? So can you talk a little bit about the security in the Internet of Things market?
Yeah, we do build our own devices. We are adding, for the most part, these sensors have a minimal amount of security. We are adding more so that we're more applicable to customers' needs. And it's somewhat easy for us to do that because we do control both the firmware on the sensors as well as the software that sits above that extracts the data. So having all of that in-house makes it a little bit more palpable to do ourselves.
Awesome. And then, last question here. We've got one from AJ asking, any prospective customers on the books? I don't know if you're able to break anything on the show today. Probably not. But I guess I would rephrase that question otherwise to, will Quanergy be able to, announce partnerships, or will that be up to the company that you're working with? How will this be communicated to investors?
Yeah, look, when we have news on partnerships, we will make public announcements. We view that is a important aspect of the post-merger, agreement debut, and so I think you should be watching for news over the summer for sure.
All right, you guys heard it there. Watching for news over the summer. Again, joining us on the show today, Kevin Kennedy, the CEO and chairman of Quanergy. That company going public via SPAC. The ticker is CCAC. Kevin, we want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule, joining us on SPACs Attack, and we look forward to following the progress of Quanergy hitting the public markets here.
Thanks for having us. I really appreciate it. Very kind.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin.
Bye.
All right, guys, there you guys have it. Another interview done and knocked out there. I thought that was a great one there. Let's go ahead and I'm going to show one more last thing. I put it in the chat right now, guys, for you guys to check out. On their website, they actually have a section called What is LiDAR? So it has a lot of explanation, a little bit more in depth than we were talking about here. So if you want to do some DD, this is where you want to go ahead and get into and start learning a little bit more about how the field of view makes a difference, how reflectivity makes a difference, the different types of LiDAR. And then also, I love this chart that they have at the bottom, which kind of signifies the difference between LiDAR, radar, and video. And then you'll start seeing the differences in why it's important to get into kind of this LiDAR move versus, let's say, using radar or even video technology there. So definitely, we're going to keep watch out on this to see how it kind of pushes the autonomous car and gets it to the next level. But if you want to learn a little bit more, check it out, guys. I put the link up there. What you thought of the interview, Chris?
I loved it. And a couple key points here. Mitch, we talk all the time about the numerous LiDAR companies going public, right? And who's going to win? Is there room for tons of players? And the majority of those LiDAR companies so focused heavily on the automotive market, which, you heard Kevin say LiDAR is going to be a game changer for the automotive market. But I really like, as you pointed out on that slide, Quanergy, only 18% of their revenue in 2025 is going to be from the auto market. They're not dependent on the automotive market like some of these other companies are. So where we see, heavy competition, between these other LiDAR companies competing for, these vehicle deals, Quanergy is focused on smart cities, security, Internet of Things. And I think that's huge because I think auto is going to be huge for LiDAR, but I also think we need to see some consolidation there first, which Kevin also talked about. And then, we tried to get something out of him on some potential customers, and we got more than I even thought we would, with him saying that stay tuned for the summer, and also that they're going to be issuing press releases to announce, some of these partnerships. That's huge, right? Because sometimes we see where it's kind of, the silent partners behind the scenes where they don't really say it. And here you have Kevin, saying, no, we're going to communicate that to shareholders and stay tuned to summer. I mean, that's huge. I'm really liking this, as a LiDAR play here. So very exciting interview. Great questions as always in the chat, team. So, what did everyone in the chat think of that? Let us know. Tell us if you like this company. Otherwise, let us know. Which other LiDAR companies you're watching out there. But Mitch, I got to say, this one's as Cole said, added to the watch list here.
Definitely. I was really glad that we got some explanation into LiDAR. That's one of the biggest areas where I think we can get a little bit better on is explaining on what differences really are between the LiDARs and the different companies. What's going to be an advantage? What's going to be a disadvantage? As you saw there, I was actually impressed on a lot of what he brought to the table there. A lot of the companies that he was mentioning are as like, when we look at the MEM and we can look at that kind of that Let's go back to this. Let's bring it back. So you look at here, look at the companies that are selected here, the selected vendors here to the bottom right. It looks like Flash is kind of, it looks at least performance wise, not getting the most. It has about half the cost efficiency of OPA. And that's like companies like Ouster, where I heard a lot of people trying to put Ouster as the leader in the LiDAR industry. So this kind of shows me a little bit different. I got to do a little bit more research, and it just shows me more and more how I don't think a lot of people understand what LiDAR really is and which one's the leader, which one's the best company. And it looks like to me like you must know a little bit deeper into engineering in these companies so that you can understand these technologies to pick a winner, right? And so with that being said, be careful what you listen to and follow out there. And that's what I want to go ahead and mention. I know a lot of traders are talking a lot about these different LiDAR companies, which one's the absolute best. I think you really need to start doing your research and understanding the 3 different areas that they're approaching here. And also one area where it seems like the other 2 just don't even have a touch in. So focus on that: cost, reliability, performance. And then right here, they mentioned adaptive zoom. That's something that the other two just don't even have. And so look for that being kind of a competitive advantage that OPA technology could definitely have. And as you guys see here, Quanergy being the leader in OPA.
Yeah, excellent points there, Mitch. LiDAR, I think, is one of those segments where everyone needs some exposure to it. And, if you have to pick someone, I'm liking this, with that chart there. I'm liking the least dependency on the auto market. Definitely one that I'm watching here. And I have owned shares of a couple of these LiDAR plays before. I did well in them. I don't own any of them anymore. But this one definitely on watch. And, Mitch, so I think we should take a look at maybe the calendar for this week. We do have a couple votes this week. Again, that calendar for June is huge. The calendar for July is shaping up nicely, but a couple this week. So as we said, FRX body, we called that out, and it was a pretty good trade. Another one was CLII, EVgo. We just had on the show. They have a merger this week on the 29th, and when we talked about this, the start of the June calendar, it was trading at around $11. I mean, you can see on that chart there, this thing now, $16. But if you look, just at the start of this month, it was at 11. It got momentum with that trade date, and then also, on the infrastructure, EV passing of that bill. And then, I just got to highlight again, when we talk about these catalysts, so June calendar, it's important to take a look at some of these stocks, before they make their moves, right? Because otherwise you're chasing, when they make that move late. But Mitch, what do you think of CLII here going into the vote in a couple, or actually tomorrow? Do you think we keep going up here, or will we see some consolidation? Oh, that old mute trick.
The
it's
old
Monday.
doggy trick.
You almost made it.
Honestly, I don't know how I've made it through today, but we'll keep that in the background. Let's keep it going. So I've been seeing this one kind of make up that little gap that you saw here, this little gap down. So like it gapped up here trying to fill it, and it didn't really fill it. So now it's trying to fill that up here. Let's see if we can get up there towards 17. I think you could get a move up towards 17, but really this is kind of a push out from this level here. So you got an 11 to 14 kind of move. And that was about a $3 move up. So that's kind of the same move I expect here from this 14, $3 move up. I'm expecting a move towards 17 before you get kind of a bigger pullback. Could get a sideways action day and then a break through that level tomorrow going up towards 17. But from that level, you got to be careful there because you don't really see the volume. You see how the volume's not really getting that high up. That's what you want to see, a big spike show up. Let's say something like this, 6 million shares traded on that push out through 17. Then you could continue seeing the lift and maybe going up there towards 23s. But for right now, 17 on the radar, and it needs some volume to continue moving.
The other two votes this week, that really catch my eye, Mitch, are, and I think we talked about these recently. We have APXT voting on Wednesday, that merger with AvePoint, which is a play on Microsoft, right? And the strength of Microsoft, the strength of the cloud business. APXT, this is one that when that deal was announced, it got a lot of attention. But really, over the last 6 months, we hit $17, but then this thing dropped all the way down to $10. And again, if you got in at the start of June, you were a little under, it looks like about $10.50. And now you have shares over $12. This is one I like AvePoint. And as I've said, Mitch, I think it gets some attention from analysts, as a software play, as a Microsoft cloud play. What do you think, APXT there?
Yeah, I mean, I like this one. I wish I would have grabbed it at $10, but I mean, I can't do all that now. So now I just got to sit back, relax, and watch this one rip and feel bad about it later. I'm sure I'll feel bad a little bit about it. But this was one that when it was trading up here was kind of one of the favorite tech ones because it had attraction and partnerships with Microsoft, and you guys can continue to see this kind of affect it. One of the things that I will point out is this is why you got to know your levels on SPACs, because this one kind of broke levels and went to the next level down. And you could have just added down at the next level down. Even if you got stuck in this one, if you would have gone off of the support levels and gotten your ads at those levels, say you got in this one at $11, and you see the 11 support crack. Next support down is $10. You could have been adding into that, getting in an average somewhere near 1050s, then looking for that 1050 to break out through, and then you could have looked to add on pullbacks. Boom, you could have been in this one and gotten your kind of your dip buy in this one. This is why you got to know your levels, and this is why you got to respect long-term levels of support and looking for those long-term supports to hold. And as you can see on that $10 level, it definitely did hold. And now you're back up there towards 12 and looking really strong. I mean, that candle that we got on Friday, really, really strong candle up there from 1150 to 1250s, and a small pullback today. Could be ripping through 1250s tomorrow. So I definitely will keep this one on radar.
And then, Mitch, we also have HOL, a space stock merging with Astra. When I look at this chart, they announced that merger vote here in June, and you saw the spike, and then it tested the 1050 level, it looks like twice. But really, it has done pretty strong and has trended above that. I think space stocks are starting to come back with that Virgin Galactic news. So I think this is another one where we could see that merger vote go through, and it could really get some interest from people, post-merger here. What do you think of HOL Astra?
Well, I'm going to keep on watch on this one to lead me into the other ones. I need to see the other ones also start moving on up. ASTS is one that's on the radar, has been pulling back towards the $10 level. So let's see if the $10 hold there and it does another push out. So keeping an eye on that one. SFTW, trying to see if this one can kind of get moving, still staying still. So I'm not really seeing the overall space reaction I thought I would see. When I saw HOL up on the day, I was like, well, maybe all of them are starting to move. No, it just seems like HOL right now, for the moment being, is getting that lift. Could be because of the vote announcement, and that could be just the play here. But I also did see overall space stocks make a lift, right? I mean, we look at SPCE, it made a huge breakout, now pulling back, but that could be a move that we see in the overall space industry. Max R, another leader in space, had a nice push up. So I'm wondering, do we get that kind of sympathy to start showing up in HOL, in those space stocks like SRAC? Also, you can take a look at Stable Road. That one looking like it's starting to set up there. Nice looking candle there. Multiple attempts to get above 13s. So if there's one that I'd point out that's starting to look strong, maybe this one right here, SRAC. You see how the volume pop? That's what I want to see, right? I always talk about that. When the volume starts coming back in, that's when I start paying attention. We had this lift up with some nice volume. Then it pulled back. Another lift up with volume. Now let's see if we can get strong somewhere up in this level. And then we can really start pushing up towards the next resistance at 16. And then we can look to see if this one wants to really start getting going. But look how this one did multiple attempts. What? Off the support, long-term support. I know a lot of people were talking about, well, SPACs are dead. SPACs are dead. But if you would have been getting them at $10, you'd be looking good right about now. You'd be having a bunch of them up about 20, 30%. And I mean, 20, 30% gainers for something that you can risk near that $10, maybe 5% loss max. That's definitely a good risk to return. So those people that were complaining a little bit, hey, waking up sometimes and realizing, hey, maybe I shouldn't have been patient. And that's one thing that we definitely did stress here on SPACs Attacks is be patient. You never know. These could come back. And if you can hold towards those levels, stick to the original plan that you set, a lot of the times you would go back and see yourself back into the profit. So that's why I always say stick to the plan. The man with the plan is the one that gets the profits.
Awesome, guys. So go ahead, smash that like if you have not. We got a lot of people in here. We only got 50 likes. That's going to do it for the show today. We're going to talk July calendar later this week. We got a couple more interviews coming up, and then we're also going to dive into SPAC warrants later this week. Really talk about the possibility of a warrant trade, and talk how warrants are moving and some SPAC warrants under $1. Again, for the people looking for a high risk, high reward trade, could be looking at those. So that's going to do it, though. Stay tuned for Power Hour, and we'll see everyone 11 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow on SPACs Attack.
Hey, Chris, what do we got for the rest of the week?
So we have no guests tomorrow, And then Wednesday, we do have another interview, and also on Thursday. So joining us on Wednesday, we have, let me pull up here the calendar. We have DDMX, which just announced the sports betting deal for Latin America. So that is on Wednesday. And then Thursday, I'm not seeing it on the calendar, but I do know we have a guest, and I believe that is also another sports betting deal that was recently announced, SEAH. But I could be mistaken on that. So we're talking sports betting this week, Mitch, which I know is exciting for both of us. So 2 exciting interviews coming.
Definitely got to make our money, and we'll be talking about that. So stay tuned, guys. Coming up next, you got the Power Hour, and stay tuned. All you got to do is just click on over or hang out for the autoplay. See you next time on the SPACs Attack.